Brainia and the Justice Helpline for arranging this seminar and a conference actually. And मैंने शायद भाई फातरी and सना कि आप लोगों ने कंसिडर किया और बुलाया. Before we talk about information security, and I think it is important that we should have a look back on the digital computing. As for my information, digital computing, actually the first digital computer was created in 1943. And for many years, it was not available to the public. There were only few computers that were available at certain government levels and very few governments. And that was the reason that cyber threats were not known or were not there. But in 1950s, some phone freaks utilized or I would say exploited the telephonic connectivity with these computers to make free of cost long distance calls. So if we talk about the record of exploiting the computer technology and the telecom systems, it was in 1950s. But there was not any kind of data loss or data theft. It was only to make free calls. After that, in 1959, some MIT students, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the students, while they were competing for certain technology-based projects, they hacked the systems at MIT to make certain functionality changes in their high-tech trade sector. So this was again something that was recognized and known. It was in 1967 when IBM invited, actually they welcomed a group of students to assess a newly designed computer system, and the students studied about it and identified certain vulnerabilities into that system. As per my information, this was actually the first ever ethical hacking activity conducted by IBM. That was in 1967. Later on, in 1970s, computers were connected to networks for information sharing, for communication. And in 1970s, there were different kind of vulnerabilities on the networks that were known or discovered, and then the government started thinking about how to fix out these vulnerabilities. There's the research groups also started working on it. And in 1979, 16-year-old Kevin Mitnick, the first known and jailed hacker, he was arrested in 1979. He actually hacked into ARC systems. They used to develop operating systems for the computers. It was a company of Digital Equipment Corporation, Tech. These were also a competitor of IBM. So he hacked into the systems and picked up the software from there. In general terms and in legal terms, we call it stealing. So he was jailed, and it was in 1980s when the government started seriously thinking about securing the computer networks and computer systems. So in 1983, the US government issued an Orange Book. This was to identify and configure secure computer systems, or identify and configure the computer systems so as to recognize the trusted and untrusted devices. Ms. Sana just spoke about zero trust architecture. Actually, this was the basis of that zero trust architecture, where you recognize a device as a trusted one and then only allow its connectivity to your network on systems. In 1986, Marcus S., a German hacker, gained access through a California-based military installation into 400 military computer systems, which included mainframes. Those were American computers, those were hacked, and all the information that he gathered was he planned to sell it to the Russian intelligence. So, here we come to see a cybercrime just not stealing of the information, but he was selling that information to an adversary. Means this was the advent of state-based hacking or state-based threat actors. In the 90s, the computers, 80s and 80s and 90s computers reduced in sizes and cost and were available to a number of people. And once the technology is available, students and youngsters and researchers, they started identifying certain loopholes, which we call the vulnerabilities into the system, and then started exploiting. And again, research was going side by side besides the actual hacking activities. In the 90s, the breaches started coming up. Breaches were there in the organizations, but those are not mainly the commercial organizations. These were the government organizations primarily or larger corporate organizations. But in 2000s, the breaches started to expand and number of it had a financial impact as well. In 2010, information security was considered as important, and standards were developed. Certain education mechanism was developed. I mean, the youngsters and the professionals were educated, and now we see a huge number of ethical hackers around us. What do these ethical hackers do? They identify the vulnerabilities in an information system. Information system may be a computer software, or multiple computers joined up or networked together to create an environment of applications and services for customers of a company and the governments and everything. So, ethical hacking is not all about the information security. Information security is actually a mindset. We are very much privy about our personal information getting into the hands of someone else. So we take care. Our personal data, CNIC, driving license, passport, pictures, we don't share with the people openly or publicly, or with the people who are not known to us, or without any specific purpose. But our computer systems, they can be hacked by somebody not known to us, if we have not implemented the security controls. So implementing the basic baseline security controls, we call it the cyber hygiene. We actually configure the computer system in a way that an unauthorized access cannot be successful. And then even in the information security area, we consider the human being as the weakest link, because we have established so much of the systems and security controls, technical controls, but if a human being shares his password with somebody or a pin of a financial transaction, the computer system cannot stop that. Now the banks have started to register customers' mobile devices or the computer systems as trusted devices. But to add that device as a trusted or recognize that device as a trusted one, it requires certain authentication mechanism. And if I provide my password to a hacker or to a malicious actor, what would happen? I am actually allowing his device to access my bank account or my organization information or my email or my data, personal data. Today, a lot of data is there on the cloud. We store the things on the Google. We store data on OneDrive because we take snaps while moving around. Do you think all this data is there on your phone or device? No, sir. This all data is going onto the cloud, which is not in our control. We don't have an access. If it is deleted, we can't recover it. But if it gets into the hands of someone malicious, with malicious intent, then we can be in trouble. I've served at FIU for 10 years, And a number of cases, we always found that it is actually the mistake of the first person by sharing his information, personal information, passwords, pictures, documents. Now, computer system is not a luxury. It is, I call it a commodity now. We have micro-sized computers in our palms, which are mobile phones. And we have connected to the internet. We use WhatsApp, we share information. We use Facebook, we share information. And we use Google, we use chats. And now, with the availability of video conferencing applications and the pandemic, actually it enabled us. The COVID-19, it actually showed us the new normal. Okay, initially it was a challenge. In the start of year 2020, it was a challenge for the organization. How would the employees be working from home? Yes, computer teams, computer network teams and computer system teams, they enabled, IT teams enabled their employees to work from home. But they also had to have conferences or meetings. The first case I encountered was a colleague of mine, and that person actually installed Zoom from an unrecognized or untrusted link. The computer was compromised. I received an alert on the system, and then we approached her and cleaned the computer, and after that we provided them the new and a legitimate means of communication. So we have to be very cautious about what all we do on a computer device or a digital computing device. And we should be very well aware that this information will not only be stored, will not remain with us only. In this conference, digital transformation in the new era, we shall see a number of changes. We are enabled to work from home, just that in compliance to certain policies and regulations, and just because of certain services, nature of the services, we cannot perform those activities from home. But rest of it, yes, that has actually increased the freelancing all around the world, and Pakistani youngsters are very much on it. Thank you very much. This is all from my side. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you so